The briefing room was cold and dimly lit, the only sound being the gentle hum of the projector. I looked around at my team, their faces illuminated by the soft glow of the screen. Maverick, our captain, stood at the front of the room, his expression grim. "Listen up," he began, his voice low and steady. "We have a new mission. High-priority target goes by the name of Al-Asim. Intel suggests he's holed up in an upscale apartment building in Cairo." Maverick clicked to the next slide, revealing a grainy photograph of a man in his mid-30s. Al-Asim is believed to be planning a major terrorist attack in the coming days. Our job is to get in, apprehend him, and get out before he has a chance to carry out his plan. I leaned forward, studying the photograph. "What do we know about his defenses?" "The apartment building is heavily secured," Maverick replied. "But we have a plan. Raven, you and Ghost will pose as maintenance workers to gain access to the building. Stonewall and I will be your backup." Ghost nodded, his icy blue eyes narrowing. "Once we're inside, we locate Al-Asim's apartment and breach on your command. We'll have to be quick and quiet. We don't want to alert anyone to our presence." Stonewall, his massive frame barely contained by the standard-issue chair, spoke up. "What's the rules of engagement?" "Capture if possible," Maverick answered. "But if he resists, we take him out. We can't afford to let him slip away." As the briefing concluded, I couldn't shake the feeling that something about this mission was off. Call it intuition or just a gut feeling, but I had learned to trust my instincts in this line of work. We geared up in silence, each of us lost in our own thoughts as we checked and double-checked our equipment. I strapped on my suppressed M4 carbine, the weight familiar and comforting in my hands. As we boarded the unmarked van that would take us to the target location, I caught Maverick's eye. He gave me a reassuring nod, but I could see the tension in his jaw. The drive through Cairo's bustling streets was tense, each of us mentally preparing for what lay ahead. I ran through the plan in my head, visualizing every step, every potential outcome. When we finally reached the apartment building, Maverick turned to face us. "All right, team," he said quietly. "Let's do this by the numbers. Raven, Ghost, you're up." I exchanged a glance with Ghost as we stepped out of the van, our disguises allowing us to blend in seamlessly with the late-night maintenance crew. We made our way towards the entrance, our comms crackling softly in our ears. As we stepped into the lobby, the unsettling feeling that had been nagging at me since the briefing suddenly intensified. The air felt heavy, charged with an energy I couldn't quite place. I pushed the feeling aside, focusing on the mission at hand. We had a job to do, and failure was not an option. The dim light of the hallway cast eerie shadows on the walls as Ghost and I made our way towards Al-Asim's apartment. The silence was oppressive, broken only by the soft creaking of our footsteps on the aged floorboards. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest, my senses heightened to an almost painful degree. "Raven, Ghost, status report," Maverick's voice crackled through our comms, barely above a whisper. "Approaching the target's apartment now," I replied, my voice tight with tension. "No signs of activity." "Copy that," Maverick acknowledged. "Stonewall and I are in position, breach on my command." As we reached the door to Al-Asim's apartment, Ghost and I took up positions on either side. I could see the sweat beading on his forehead, his jaw clenched tight. I gave him a reassuring nod, my finger resting lightly on the trigger of my M4. 3, 2, 1, breach! Maverick's voice snapped through the comms. Ghost kicked the door open, the sound of splintering wood echoing through the hallway like a gunshot. We stormed into the apartment, our weapons at the ready, scanning for any signs of threat. But what we found inside was not at all what we expected. Al-Asim stood in the center of the room, his hands raised in surrender. But there was something wrong, something deeply unsettling about his appearance. His skin was pale and waxy, his eyes sunken and ringed with dark circles, and his smile. It was too wide, too sharp, like a predator baring its teeth. "Welcome," he hissed, his voice sending chills down my spine. "I've been waiting for you." I kept my weapon trained on him, my finger tightening on the trigger. "On your knees now!" I barked, my voice sounding strained even to my own ears. But Alasim just laughed, a sound that was more animal than human. "You have no idea what you're dealing with," he snarled, his body beginning to twist and convulse in a way that defied all laws of nature. I watched in horror as his flesh rippled and tore, his bones snapping and reforming into something monstrous. The creature that stood before us was a nightmare made real. All razor-sharp claws and dripping fangs, its eyes glowing with an otherworldly hunger. "Open fire!" I screamed, squeezing the trigger of my M4. The muzzle flash lit up the room like a strobe light, the bullets tearing through the creature's flesh with sickening thuds. But it was like shooting at a tank. The creature barely seemed to notice the rounds, its attention fixed solely on us. It lunged forward with blinding speed, its claws slicing through the air like scythes. I saw Stonewall go down first, his chest torn open like a bloody flower. He didn't even have time to scream before the life faded from his eyes. Ghost was next. His neck snapped like a twig as the creature slammed him against the wall. I could hear the sickening crunch of bone, the wet gurgle of his last breath. I kept firing, my mind numb with terror as the creature turned its attention to me. I felt its claws rake across my side, white-hot pain exploding through my body as I fell to the ground. My vision blurred, the edges of the world turning black. Through the haze of agony, I saw Maverick standing over me, his face a mask of grim determination. He had a grenade in his hand, his fingers white-knuckled tight around the pin. "Run, Raven!" he shouted, his voice barely audible over the ringing in my ears. "I'll hold it off!" I tried to protest, to tell him that I wouldn't leave him behind. But my body wouldn't obey, my limbs heavy and sluggish as I dragged myself towards the door. The last thing I saw before I blacked out was Maverick charging towards the creature, the grenade clutched tightly in his fist. Then, everything went dark. I woke to the sound of beeping monitors and the sterile scent of antiseptic. My vision was blurry, my mind foggy with the lingering effects of painkillers. I tried to sit up, but a sharp pain in my side sent me crashing back against the pillows. "Easy there, Sergeant McIntyre," a voice said from somewhere to my left. "You've been through quite an ordeal." I turned my head, blinking to clear my vision. A man in a white coat stood beside my bed, his face lined with concern. "Where am I?" I croaked, my throat dry and scratchy. "You're in the military psychiatric hospital," the doctor replied gently. "You were brought here after your mission in Cairo." The mission. The memories came flooding back like a tidal wave, threatening to drown me in their intensity. The apartment, the creature, the screams of my dying teammates. I felt my heart begin to race, my breath coming in short, panicked gasps. "My team," I whispered, my voice barely audible. "What happened to them?" The doctor hesitated, his expression guarded. "I'm sorry, Sergeant. You were the only survivor." I felt like I had been punched in the gut. Maverick, Stonewall, Ghost, they were gone. Lost to that nightmare creature. And I was left alone, the sole witness to a horror that defied explanation. In the days that followed, I tried to tell anyone who would listen about what had really happened in that apartment. But no one believed me. They said I was suffering from PTSD, that my mind had created the monster as a way to cope with the trauma of losing my team. But I knew the truth. I had seen it with my own eyes, felt its claws tear into my flesh. And the more I insisted on the reality of what I had experienced, the more concerned the doctors became. They started watching me more closely, whispering behind closed doors. I could feel their eyes on me, could sense their unease whenever I spoke of the creature. They thought I was crazy, that I had lost my grip on reality. But I knew I wasn't crazy. I knew what I had seen, what I had fought. And I knew that somewhere out there, that creature was still lurking, waiting for its next victim. As the weeks turned into months, I became consumed with the need to prove my sanity, to find evidence of the creature's existence. I pored over mission reports, searched through classified files, looking for any shred of information that could validate my claims. But the more I searched, the more paranoid I became. I started seeing shadows in every corner, hearing whispers in the silence of my room. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched, that someone or something was trying to silence me. One night, I found it. A single photograph, buried deep in a file that had been marked as classified. It was grainy and blurred, but there was no mistaking the creature that stared back at me from the image. As I sat in my hospital room, the photograph clutched tightly in my trembling hands, I made a decision. I would find the truth, no matter the cost. I would uncover the secrets that had been hidden from me, and I would make sure that the world knew what I had seen, even if it meant sacrificing everything I had left.